Welcome to Review the PS2, my eternal quest to review every PS2 game. I'm Urbeta Pash, and we're starting off with a classic, Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank is a third-person platformer made by Insomniac Games, the makers of Spyro. It comes from an era where everyone wanted to make the next great mascot platformer, and boy, they succeeded. It created a franchise that outlived its competitors and stood out in the PS2's massive library. Ratchet and Clank perfectly blends platforming, shooting, and puzzle solving into a tight package with excellent presentation. We begin with Ratchet, a furry who is also a dick because he just wants to have fun and murder stuff. But more on that later. He meets a robot named Clank and visits other planets in order to find a hero to stop Drek, a real estate mogul who is going to destroy the galaxy for profit. The story's premise lends itself to a couple of cool game features. Each level is a different planet with different environments and aesthetics that set interesting tones for the game. Some planets are abandoned, poisonous wastelands. Others are under constant siege or minutes from being blown to pieces. Such variety elevates the experience, even if it has no effect on gameplay. The levels themselves are executed fantastically. Ratchet and Clank is both a platformer and a shooter, and so the levels are split into separate sections based on these two genres. A typical level will be divided into at least two parts, one devoted to combat and the other to platforming or puzzle solving, or the use of a gadget. As a player, you can tackle the different parts of the level in any order, and sometimes you may need to backtrack from new planets to finish old ones. This keeps the gameplay fresh, as new gameplay is always being added in right as the old gameplay is getting stale. This kind of level design is great, and it's become a staple of the Ratchet franchise ever since. Most of the time. Combat in Ratchet and Clank is very fun, yet simple. You get weapons and kill enemies until you run out of things to kill. Then you get more money and buy better weapons. Ratchet has a wrench he can swing around, but why do that when you can launch a remote-controlled rocket? Blowing stuff up is fun, and I encourage you to blow up as many things as possible. Wait, speaking of explosions, there are a lot of different weapon types and they fulfill specific roles in combat. The Devastator and the Blaster are good at single enemies, whereas the Bomb Glove and the Pyrocitor are good at taking out groups of swarmers. Because of this, every weapon is useful, and as a result, no weapon feels like a waste of money. The other half of this game is devoted to platforming. Platforming as a genre is tricky to get right. If your controls are slightly off or the critical path is too obscured, it'll ruin the entire experience. Thankfully, Ratchet and Clank runs at smooth 60 FPS most of the time, and the controls and physics are tight. A couple of additions also spice up the genre: the swing shot, the grind boots, and Clank himself. Clank is a robot who also has a propeller and a rocket to get Ratchet to higher ledges and cross large gaps. The rocket pack is objectively better than the propeller pack. The swing shot and grind boots add different kinds of platforming to the mix. Can't jump across a ledge? Swing across it. Tired of walking everywhere? Bam! Grind rails. I love the grind boots. They are extremely fun to use, even if they only used a couple of times. Ratchet and Clank features a New Game Plus mode, where you start out with all of your old weapons, some upgrades, and you can buy an upgraded version of your old weapons. This gives Ratchet and Clank considerable replayability. I've been gushing about Ratchet and Clank for a while now, so it seems about right to list a major problem this game has. It's not a glitch, or even a consistently bad frame rate, rather a poorly developed economy, which seems like a very weird complaint. Everything in Ratchet and Clank costs money. The whole plot of the game is based on rampant consumerism, and as a result, every NPC wants money. Opening up the path to the next planet costs money. Getting a new gadget costs money. Weapons, ammo, health upgrades, the game, they all cost money. But you're never given enough money to actually buy all the things you want to buy. When you're playing a game focused on shooting enemies, it's a real letdown you can't even afford ammunition, let alone a new weapon. You can save this poor guy's life and he still has the gall to charge you money. Having to grind to be able to pay for ammo, or even worse, to move on with the story, feels awful and is Ratchet and Clank's biggest flaw. The game can also get difficult towards the end, but just get good and that problem goes away. The game is relatively glitch-free. You won't really encounter a glitch unless you go out of your way to break the game. You can expect some graphical slowdowns and glitches if you're playing the HD collection, but not if you're playing the PS2 version. The consequence of porting the game to HD is some messed up alphas and textures, and some things that weren't on screen now are, and make it look awkward. Ratchet and Clank is a phenomenal game for the PlayStation 2. You can pick it up for relatively cheap on either the PS2 or by getting the HD collection for the PS3 or the Vita. It is an incredibly fun and satisfying game with few problems, but it fully deserves a 5 out of 5. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you're interested, I did do an entire Ratchet and Clank Let's Play. If you want to see more reviews like these when they come out, hit that subscribe button. This is going to be a large undertaking, but I got one game down, 3,000 more to go.